Welcome in the third episode. Today we will add the button behavior. We're going to create the game scene and also spawn the grid. So in our project, let's select the asset folder, and first of all, let's create the scripts folder. So right click, create folder scripts. Let's open the folder, and inside the folder, I'm going to create the C# script, and I will call it the menu button behavior. Let's open the script. Okay, let's first of all remove the start and then update method, and right at the top I will add another using statement. So using unity engine.scene management, and inside the class we're going to add one public function. So public void load scene, and then we're going to pass the scene name, so string scene name, and let's call it the scene manager dot load scene, and we're going to pass that scene name, and that's it. So this function will be used just to load the scene. So let's save it. Let's go back, and now I'm gonna select the main camera. I'm gonna grab the menu button behavior script and drop it into the main camera. And now let's select our play button, and let's create the on click event. So hit the small plus, drag our main camera and drop it into the runtime object, and then from the function select the menu button behavior and then load scene. And we need to pass the scene name. We don't have a game scene yet, but we're gonna create the game scene. Make sure you now create the same scene with the same name as you type here. Now let's go to our scenes folder, right click, create scene, and let's call it game scene. Now let's go to our file, build settings, and inside the built-in scene, we need to add our menu scene and then game scene. So let's hit add open scenes. That's gonna add the menu scene, and now grab and drop the game scene into the list. So you should have two scenes over here. If you don't add it, the play button will not work, will not load any other scene, and you will see the error in the console. So once you add everything, you can close this window. And now let's actually test it. So hit play, and then press play button. Okay, the game scene is loaded. If for some reason your scene is not loaded, just double check the names under your play button. Make sure you have the same name as the scene name. Okay, now let's save the scene. And inside the game scene, let's first of all add the background. So right click, UI canvas, and then on the canvas, let's change the UI scale mode to be scale with screen size. Let's put the target resolution to be 480 by 800, and then matching value to be 0.5. Okay, and now we can right click on the canvas, UI image, and it's going to be our background. And let's go to the add-ons, MG Lego mode is skies, and then you have the texture there and then skyboxes. So I want to put the same texture as I have on the main menu. So that was the carton front. Let's grab this this texture and then drop it into the source image. And now you can hit the set native size. And as you see, the texture is actually not placed exactly the same as on the main menu. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna save the scene. So file save. I will switch back to the menu scene. Let's go to the canvas background, and we can actually copy this rect transform. So I will hit the three dots, copy component. So we will have exactly the same size of the texture as we have in the menu scene. And now let's go back to the game scene, select the canvas, background, and then let's paste component values. So we have exactly the same background. So let's save everything. We are ready now to add the game manager. So let's go to the scripts folder. Let's right click, create C# script. Let's call it game manager. So right click, create C# script, and I'm gonna call it square. Let's open the game manager script. So we want to add few variables. So I first of all remove these comments, and right at the top, let's add the public square. So this is the class we have created from the square script. And that's going to be the square object. So this is going to be our prefab for the square. Then let's put the private vector2, and that's going to be the start position will be equal to new vector2, and I have the predefined value, which is going to be minus 6.81 and then 10.54 f, and those values are actually selected so you have the grid in the middle of the screen if you have the same resolution. If you want to, you can modify this value, it doesn't really matter, it's just for the simplicity. And then let's add the offset as well. So private vector2 offset be equal to new vector2, and this is going to be again the same values. So that's going to be the 2.21f. Okay, so with those values we can actually create the function to create our grid. So in our start method I will call function spawn grid squares. Okay, and let's now add this function. So under the update method I will put the private void. Okay, and then inside this function let's put few variables. So first of all will be var line number be equal to 0. Another one will be const int, and that's going to be the square inline will be equal to 9. Var square index inline will be equal to 0. Okay, so with this we actually need one more variables with the number of the squares. So I'm gonna create the grid with the 81 squares. It's gonna be 9 lines, 9 square in each line. So at the top of the class I will put the private int, and that's gonna be the const square numbers. Square number will be equal to 81. Okay, and now inside the function let's put the for, and we want to loop through, we want to put I to be equal to 1, and we want to loop through all of the square number, and I will change this to be pre-increment. Okay, so we have a for loop. Let's actually replace it with var. Now inside the for loop let's put the var temp square will be equal to, and now we're going to cast to square. And now let's call instantiate, and then we first of all we want to pass the square object, which is our prefab, then new vector3, and that's going to be our position. So we want to place the put this on the start position dot x, start position dot y, and then 0 f. Okay, now we want to put the rotation. We want to put the new quaternion, and will be 0 f, 0 f, and we want to rotate this by 180, so 180.0f, and then 0. And now we want to set the name, so temp square dot name will be equal to temp square dot name plus I. So we want all of the squares to have different names. We want to set the proper position for it, so temp square dot transform dot position will be equal to new vector 3, and now we want to put the start position dot x plus open braces offset dot x plus square inline, and then we want to do the same for y. So for y will be 0f, and then for the z we want to put the start position dot minus the line number times offset dot y. And there's actually inside the x we need to put the offset x times, not plus. Okay, so make sure that this is the offset x times line square inline, and then offset times line number. Now we want to increase those square inline and then line number variables. So if I modulo square inline is equal to 0, so if we don't have any rest from the division, those two values, we want to increase the line number, and then square inline will be equal to 0. We have all of the squares in the first line, and now we are in the position where we moving to the next line, and we want to start from the index 0 again, and that's going to be the square index inline. And then otherwise square index inline plus plus. So in this case we switching the line, and if not, we just increasing the square index in the same. Okay, so with this I think we are ready to go back to the Unity. So Ctrl S to save, and then switch back to Unity. Inside our game scene, let's right click create empty, and I'm gonna call it game manager, and then let's grab our game manager script and drop it into that object. And now we need to have the square object. So let's quickly add the prefab. So I'm gonna go to the game objects, 3D object, cube, and let's call this object actually square. And now the position is not really important. The scale, we want to put the scale to 2.18, and then 1.5, and then 2.18. Okay, so this is the scale, the same value as we set the offset in our, and then we want to change the rotation on the Z to be minus 180, and we want to add our square script to this object. So grab the square script and drop it into the inspector. So make sure the square have the square script attached. And now we can go to our prefab folder, which we don't have. So go to the assets, right click, create folder, and then prefabs. Open the prefab folder, drag our square into the prefab folder. So your square object should turn blue. And now we can select the square object and delete it. And now let's select the game manager, grab our prefab and drop it into the square object. Okay. And now we can hit play. Okay, so as you see, all of the squares are spawned, but the problem is all of them are spawned in the same position, as you see. So let's check why is that. So let's go back to the scripts and go to the game manager. Let's open the script and let's double check. So in our spawn grid squares, the first issue I can see is that when inside our for loop, so currently we're spawning only 80 squares, so we need to put in the condition I is less or equal the square number. And then when we actually setting the position for our squares, we're currently multiplying our offset x by the square in line, which is the constant value 9. So this is not correct. We should multiply it instead with the square index in line. So make sure you have this value inside, right? So this should look like that. So now we are multiplying that. So we are stacking all of the squares in the same line. And then if our index is more than 9, because this variable is 9, we're going to go to the next line and then reset our index and start from the beginning. Okay, so that should be fine. Let's save everything. Control S, switch back to Unity. Now let's go to the canvas actually, and then let's switch the render mode from the screen space overlay to screen space camera, and then drag and drop our main camera. Okay, and make sure our canvas is in the default layer, and then just if it's not, just switch to the default and then make sure you apply it to the children. And now we can try to press play. Okay, so as you see, our grids are spawn, but is in the wrong plane. So I think what we need to do, we're gonna rotate the camera. So let's go to our main camera. Let's change the rotation. So for the X, let's put the 90 degrees. And for the Z, put 90. So now when we press play, we cannot actually see it on our canvas. This is because the position of the camera is not set properly. So let's change that. Remember, we are in the play mode, so none of those numbers will be saved. We will have to copy it. So for the position X, I will change this to 1.5. For the Y, I will change it to 20.8. And for the Z, I will change it to 1.58. So we can see the grid now. So let's actually hit these 3 dots and then copy component, stop it, select the main camera, and then put these 3 dots and then paste component values. Okay, so we have the same values as we set in the play mode. And now let's also change the viewport for the camera. So first of all, let's change the projection from the perspective to be orthographic, and then change the size from 5 to be 21.8, and then the width for the viewport rectangle, let's change it to 3. Okay, now we can file and save, and then hit play again. And as you see, we have our grid in the middle of the screen. So we have 81 squares, 9 per each line, and 9 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we have 9 lines. So that's it for today's episode. In the next episode, we're gonna carry on implementing the game logic and also add some UI elements to this scene. If you like this episode, consider subscribing to this channel and leave a like. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next episode.